My close friends and those of you who have heard me speak know that I occasionally write something that I want to share. Today is one of those days, and please excuse my voice. Someone said something to me recently that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. I've known this person since elementary school. We're talking more than 50 years. We reconnected on Facebook a few years ago, and from everything I could see, he had become someone who had genuinely counted his blessings, someone who understood gratitude. But the other night, he said something that really made me pause. He told me he has cancer. And then he said, Ricky, I don't have a lot to be happy about right now. I want to talk about that because if you've ever thought something similar, if you've ever looked at what I teach and wondered whether it applies to you and your life and your pain, then this video is for you. When I talk about happiness, when I call myself the happiness architect, I'm not talking about pretending everything is fine when it isn't. I'm not talking about slapping a smile on top of suffering. I'm not talking about toxic positivity or some relentlessly cheerful version of life where pain doesn't exist and grief isn't real and cancer doesn't happen to people you've known for years. That's not what I'm teaching. That's never what I've been teaching. I'm also aware that the word happiness itself doesn't work for everyone. I have a dear friend in my inner circle. His name is Tyler, and he's been pushing back on that word since the day we met. And you know what? He's not wrong to push back. Words carry baggage. If happiness feels shallow to you, or naive, or out of reach given what you're carrying right now, call it something else. Call it joy, call it inner peace, call it bliss, call it meaning, call it the sense that your life matters and that you are fully, genuinely alive. There's actually an ancient Greek word for it, eudaimonia, and it's so rich and so layered that I'm going to do an entire video on it soon because it captures something that the English word happiness never quite manages to reach. But first, I want to tell you about two men whose stories have shaped everything I believe about what's possible for the human spirit, even at its darkest hour. The first is Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist, brilliant, accomplished, already building the foundation of what would become a revolutionary approach to psychology when the Nazis arrested him in 1942. He was sent to the concentration camps, Auschwitz, Dachau, 4 camps in total over 3 years. During that time, he lost almost everyone: his father, his mother, his brother, his wife. And yet, what Viktor Frankl discovered in those camps, watching who survived and who did not, changed the entire field of psychology. He observed that the prisoners who held on, the ones who endured the unendurable, were not the strongest physically. They were the ones who retained a sense of meaning, a reason to go on, a future they were still working toward, even when the future seemed impossible, a love they were still holding on to, even when the person they loved was gone. He came to believe, and later proved through decades of clinical work, that the last human freedom, the one that cannot be taken away no matter what is done to you, is the freedom to choose your response to whatever life puts in front of you. After he was liberated in 1945, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning in 9 days. 9 days. It has sold over 16 million copies and been translated into more than 50 languages. He went on to found logotherapy, the idea that our deepest drive as human beings is not the pursuit of pleasure or power, but the search for meaning. And it became one of the foundational pillars of what we now call positive psychology. Viktor Frankl didn't have a lot to be happy about, not by any conventional measure. He lost everything that mattered to him in the most brutal way imaginable. And he chose meaning anyway. The second man I want to tell you about is Randy Pausch. Randy Pausch was a computer science professor at Carnegie Mellon University, beloved teacher, brilliant mind, a man who had found the work he was born to do and was doing it with everything he had. In 2006, at the age of 46, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He fought it, the cancer came back. And by the summer of 2007, his doctors told him he had approximately 3 to 6 months to live. He had 3 young children and a wife named Jay, and he knew with absolute clarity that his children were going to grow up without remembering much about their father. Carnegie Mellon had a tradition called the last lecture, where the faculty would give a hypothetical talk about what wisdom they'd share if it were their final chance to speak. When Randy gave that lecture, it was no longer hypothetical. He stood in front of a packed auditorium on September 18th, 2007. He did push-ups on stage. A man with terminal cancer with months to live, who had every reason in the world to be broken, stood up in front of his students and did push-ups because he wanted them to know that he was still there, still fully present, still choosing to show up. His lecture wasn't about cancer. It wasn't about dying. It was about living fully, about chasing your dreams, about enabling the dreams of others, about the attitude you bring to the time you have, however much or little of it remains. He died on July 25th, 2008, at the age of 47. His book, The Last Lecture, became an international bestseller, and the video of that lecture has been watched by millions of people around the world, people who needed to be reminded of what's possible when a human being decides to meet their circumstances with dignity, with intention, and with love. Now, here's something I'd like you to understand. When my friend said to me, Ricky, I don't have a lot to be happy about right now, his pain is real. His fear is real. I'd never minimize that for a second. Viktor Frankl wasn't happy in Auschwitz. Randy Pausch wasn't happy about leaving his children behind. Happiness, in the conventional sense of the word, is not what either of those men were reaching for. They were reaching for something deeper. They were reaching for meaning, for agency, for the profound, unshakable knowledge that even now, even in this, there is a choice available to them about how they meet this moment. That is what I teach. That's always been what I've taught. And here's the part I most want you to hear. Most of the people I work with are not facing terminal diagnoses. Most of the people watching this video are not in concentration camps or counting their remaining months or saying goodbye to their children who are too young to remember them. Most of us are navigating something far less extreme and yet somehow still managing to miss the extraordinary richness in the life that we actually have. We're sleepwalking. We're numbing out. We're so consumed by the noise, the pressure, the endless scroll of everything we don't have that we've lost touch with what we do. And if Frankl and Pausch could find meaning and agency and even joy in the circumstances they faced, what might be possible for the rest of us if we simply choose to wake up? I also want to speak directly to anyone watching who's in the dark right now, anyone who is sick or grieving or afraid or feeling like there isn't much to hold on to. Because even there, especially there, the tools I talk about matter. Acceptance, the ability to look at what's true without running from it or pretending it away. Forgiveness of others, yes, but also of yourself for not being more, not doing more, not seeing it sooner. Hope, not the naive kind that denies reality, but the grounded kind that says, even now, this is not the whole story. and goodwill. The simple, radical act of wishing well to the people around you, even when you're in pain, especially when you're in pain, because something remarkable happens when you shift your focus outward, even briefly. Something in you that was contracted begins to expand. These aren't tricks. These aren't toxic positivity. These are the tools that Viktor Frankl used to survive the unsurvivable. They are the tools Randy Pausch used to spend his last months as a gift to the people who loved him most. They're available to every single one of us. And I know that not just as a coach, but as someone who's needed them. My close friends and those of you who have heard me speak know I lost my best friend, the brother I never had, to a heart condition when we were both just 23 years old. 6 years later, I was diagnosed with that same condition, plus a secondary one that made sudden death a very real possibility for me. Yet I've been lucky enough to stick around another 4 decades. In fact, one of my cardiologists said to me, the good news is, if it hasn't killed you yet, it probably won't. And that, in no small part, is why my gratitude knows no bounds. To my friend and to anyone else out there who is facing something hard right now, I see you. Your pain is real. Your fear is real. I'm not asking you to pretend otherwise for a single second. What I am asking gently and with great respect for what you're carrying is whether there might still be some small corner of this life where meaning is possible, where something worth holding on to still exists. Because I believe it does. Viktor Frankl believed it, and he had far more reason to doubt it than most of us ever will. That's what I mean when I talk about happiness. Not the absence of pain, not a life where nothing goes wrong, the presence of something deeper, something that pain cannot reach, something that circumstances cannot take if you're willing to look for it. Please know I'm sending love to you for wherever you are in your life right now. I'll see you soon.